Last Christmas, I wanted to try something different with my girlfriend. We had recently moved into a new apartment together and were still enjoying it. Since it was our first Christmas in the apartment, we decided to cut down our own tree. Luckily, we live in New Hampshire, where spruce trees grow. On a snowy evening, Tristan and I took a short road trip to a forest filled with spruce trees. I thought it would be more festive to go while it was snowing. I parked my pickup truck in a small opening on the side of the road, although it was hard to see due to the snow. We left the truck there and started searching for a tree. The area was hilly, so we had to walk uphill a lot. Unfortunately, my girlfriend complained a lot and didn't seem to enjoy the trip as much as I did. Despite that, we continued through the snow, looking for a small spruce tree that would fit in our living room. Most of the trees we found were too big, but eventually we found the perfect one. I shook the tree and then started chopping at the trunk with an axe. The trunk was thin, so after a few good hits, the tree fell over. Since I couldn't carry it alone and didn't want to drag it through the snow, I asked Tristan to hold the top while I held the trunk. Then she suddenly expressed her dissatisfaction about not having gloves. Fortunately, there was an extra pair in the car, but I hadn't realized that she hadn't brought them. I tossed her the keys and instructed her to quickly go back to the trunk and retrieve the gloves. She hurried down the hill, leaving me alone in the middle of the woods next to the freshly cut tree. Justin was taking a while, so I decided to sit on the trunk of the tree and observe my surroundings. The pine trees stretched as far as I could see, although it wasn't too far since it was almost dark. I turned on the flashlight I had brought with me to make it easier for Tristan to locate me later. Apart from the sound of the wind and the gentle snowflakes hitting the ground, it was completely silent. Sitting there all alone was actually a bit eerie. Finally, I heard the sound of boots walking in the snow nearby. I called out Tristan's name loudly and waved my flashlight in that direction. However, the footsteps stopped and there was no response. I thought she might be trying to sneak up on me, so I decided to turn the tables on her. I placed the flashlight on the stump, aimed it towards the woods, and as quietly as possible, I went to hide behind a tree to wait for her to appear. I knelt down behind a large pine tree and heard the footsteps getting closer. Finally, someone emerged from the darkness towards the beam of the flashlight, sprinting towards it. However, it wasn't my girlfriend. It was a random man wearing a coat with a hood covering his head. He paused, glanced at the flashlight, snatched it and switched it off. With the darkness engulfing us once again, I could barely make out his figure. Judging by his aggressive approach towards the flashlight, I couldn't fathom that he had good intentions. Taking a deep breath, I swiftly ran down the hill towards the car. The noise I made was so loud that I knew he must have heard it, but I didn't dare turn around to check. As I reached halfway down the hill, I started hearing screams. They were Tristan's panicked cries calling out my name. When I reached the bottom of the hill, the sound of the truck's horn honking reached my ears. I reached the truck and leaped into the driver's seat. Tristan was already inside, anxiously urging me to drive. Although I didn't need her words to prompt me, I knew what I had to do. As I drove the truck away from that small clearing, we both glanced back and saw a man standing where my truck had been just seconds ago, watching us escape. The journey back home was long, but we made a stop at a Home Depot to pick up a tree. Alternatively, we could try cutting down our own tree. Back in the late 1990s, when I was in college, something interesting happened. I had been dating this girl for about 8 months, and since she was my first real girlfriend, my mom was excited to meet her. We decided to introduce her to my family during the holidays. Every year, my mom's family would have a big gathering at my uncle's place in Sandy, Oregon. It was a tradition, and all of my extended family from the Portland area would come. They were all excited to meet my girlfriend. I was a bit nervous that they would embarrass me, but it turned out that I had nothing to worry about. My girlfriend got along really well with everyone, and they even teased me about a funny story from my childhood. Despite that, she still liked me even more after meeting my family. When it was time to drive her back home to Eugene, we ended up leaving later than planned because we were having such a good time. To try and make the journey faster, I took a different route, Oregon, 211, instead of sticking to the I-5S the whole way. Unfortunately, it didn't actually make the trip any faster. The OR 211 was surrounded by farms and dense pine forests, so it wasn't well lit in some parts. Large portions of the road were poorly lit, and we found ourselves driving through complete darkness in some areas, relying solely on our car's headlights. However, I wasn't too concerned because I was confident in my map reading skills, and once we were back on the I-5, I knew we would be fine. We were happily chatting and joking about some quirky family members, while my girlfriend expressed her excitement to see them again. Then, as we descended a steep hill towards the bridge over Deep Creek, we realized that the highway was surrounded by dense forests with no lighting whatsoever. Our headlights only illuminated a small area in front of us, about 20 or 30 feet. Little did we know, we were completely unprepared for what was about to happen. Just as the road began to level out, something darted across in front of us so quickly and unexpectedly that I narrowly avoided hitting it. I slammed on the brakes so hard that we almost got whiplash. When we came to a stop, both my girlfriend and I were in a state of panic, asking each other if we had seen what just happened. There are plenty of deer and coyotes in that area of Oregon, but whatever ran in front of us was too large to be a coyote, and the way it moved gave me a gut feeling that it wasn't a deer either. The shape was too slender, almost as if it had been moving on 2 legs instead of 4. In hindsight, I realize how foolish it was, but my curiosity got the best of me and I decided to investigate. I made the incredibly foolish choice to turn the car 90 degrees on the highway, pointing our headlights into the woods. Although this could have caused a dangerous accident if another car had come by, I wasn't thinking clearly at the time. Growing up in the Pacific Northwest, I had heard countless stories about Bigfoot and Sasquatch, and they had always fascinated me. I didn't expect to actually see anything, but a part of me wanted to confirm it for myself. So I turned the car, switched on the high beams, and stepped out of the driver's side, away from the highway. I gazed into the trees for a few minutes, but there was nothing to be seen. The entire scene was eerily silent and motionless. However, as I looked, a sense of dread washed over me, and I began to feel like I had made a grave mistake. It was one of the most terrifying feelings I had ever experienced, as if I was being watched by something predatory. I understand that it may sound cliché, but I can't find any other way to describe it. I felt a sense of being watched. My heart was racing, the hairs on my neck stood up, and I felt a chill in my gut. Instead of turning my back to the woods where I sensed danger, I cautiously moved towards the car. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the car horn blared loudly, startling me to the point where I almost panicked. I thought it was my girlfriend accidentally leaning on the horn, as she had done before. When I turned around, I saw her still on the passenger side, leaning over and desperately trying to get my attention. Worried, I rushed back to the car and asked if she was okay, but she didn't utter a word. Instead, she pointed towards a spot about 50 feet away from where we parked. I followed her gaze, and that's when I saw it. A man covered in animal furs, wearing antlers on his head. It was like a mix of deer, bear, and elk skins. In that moment, the term reindeer man flashed in my mind, perhaps due to the holiday season. However, there was nothing festive about his appearance. I couldn't see his eyes due to his head covering. Subsequently, he turned and departed into the depths of the forest, vanishing without a trace. Immediately following that, my girlfriend and I swiftly left the area and resumed our journey on the roads leading to the I-5. It took some time for both of us to calm our nerves, but my girlfriend was particularly shaken as she had witnessed something that I had not. As we continued driving, she explained in detail what she had seen. While I had been gazing into the woods in search of Sasquatch or any other peculiarities, she had caught sight of something in her peripheral vision. For a brief moment, she was paralyzed with fear as she observed him slowly approaching me. However, walking wouldn't accurately describe his movements. According to her account, he was stalking, akin to a hunter pursuing its prey. She mustered up immense courage to lean over and honk the horn, which caused the stalker to retreat slightly before I caught sight of him. He then froze momentarily before disappearing. Upon returning home, I conducted extensive online research to uncover any encounters with this individual, but to no avail. Although the Pacific Northwest is home to numerous eccentric survivalists, this particular individual seemed to elude any online presence. The reindeer man appeared to live completely off the grid, unlike those who falsely claimed to be militiamen or something similar. Although I no longer reside in Oregon, I used to avoid the highway where I encountered the reindeer man whenever I drove towards Eugene with my girlfriend. Some people may think I'm fabricating this story, but it's not a fictional tale or a mere spooky story. It serves as a genuine warning to those who travel on that road at night. If my girlfriend hadn't been with me to spot him before he startled me, I might not be here to caution you all. Therefore, please drive cautiously, especially during this holiday season, and avoid stopping for any reason on dark and deserted forest highways. Let me share a little background story. My great-grandmother's second husband was an extremely cruel person who systematically abused my dad and his sisters for many years in various ways. This had a devastating impact on my family, making them overly cautious and protective of me. I was rarely allowed to play outside without supervision, and sleepovers at friends' houses were out of the question. This incident occurred in the early 90s when I was around 7 or 8 years old. We were living in Florida during the holiday season. My great-grandmother, who lived with us until she passed away, played a significant role in taking care of me whenever my parents were working. I adored her, and she was the best grandmother one could ask for. That year, I was fortunate enough to receive the one gift I had been longing for, a brand new pair of roller skates. I was absolutely thrilled and couldn't wait to practice and improve my skills. In the afternoon, I'm gliding back and forth on the sidewalk outside our house, improving my skills with each passing hour. Meanwhile, Nana sits on the porch, keeping a watchful eye on me while taking breaks to read a magazine or a book. Suddenly the phone rings, and Nana has no choice but to go inside and answer it. She hesitates, knowing I would protest if I had to stop skating even for a moment. However, she leaves the main door open so she can still keep an eye on me through the screen door. It takes her a couple of minutes to finish the call, but nothing eventful happens during that time, giving her some peace of mind. When she returns, she resumes her reading, while I continue practicing tricks on my skateboard. After about 45 minutes, she calls me inside for a lemonade break. I plead with her to let me skate a little longer, promising to come inside as soon as she prepares the lemonade, without any objections. She gives me a brief scowl, probably annoyed that she couldn't refuse my begging, but eventually agrees and goes inside to prepare the lemonade. However, she instructs me to sing loudly so she can hear me from the kitchen and know that I'm still there. Obliging her request, I sing all the Boys II Men lyrics I know while continuing to skate. After a few minutes, I glance up and notice a large van turning onto our street. It moves slowly, appearing lost or searching for something, but I pay it no mind. As a naive child, I am too absorbed in my happiness with my skates to consider any potential danger. Besides, I am with my tough Nana, so I believe nothing can harm me. The van pulls up beside me and comes to a stop. I continue twirling on my skates, trying to impress my impromptu audience. Suddenly, the passenger side of the van opens, and an extremely tall man emerges. He towers over all the other adults around, resembling a scarecrow with his lanky limbs and messy salt and pepper hair. I distinctly remember his appearance. He approaches me and asks for directions to the highway. I simply point back down the street, unsure if it's the correct way, but eager to help a stranger. He smiles, thanks me, and that's when I start feeling nervous. It's his teeth. The teeth of the scarecrow man were discolored and crooked, which reminded me of monsters. Even though he asked about my Christmas and offered me a dollhouse, I couldn't shake off the fear. When he suggested going to his van, I quickly skated away and called for my Nana. She came with a pan and scared him away, saving me from a potential abduction. I vividly recall witnessing her swinging that pan around, demanding that he return so she could teach him a lesson, and although her anger frightened me, I was relieved that she was twice as intimidating as the scarecrow man. According to my mother, Nana attempted to note down the van's license plate number, only to discover that it didn't have one. The man was undoubtedly a predator, meticulously preparing to abduct a child for reasons unknown. All I remember is the police at our house, my dad coming home early, and repeatedly describing the man's appearance, while they diligently recorded every detail about the van and his attire. Needless to say, I was forbidden from skating for the remainder of the holiday. This story resurfaced during Nana's funeral, where we shared anecdotes about her. The truly unsettling part, which I only learned years later, was that when Nana and I described the scarecrow man to the police, they exchanged a shocked glance before informing Nana and my dad, I had left the room by then, that we had essentially provided an accurate description of another criminal they were desperately trying to apprehend. This man had made multiple attempts to abduct children in broad daylight during the holiday season, and they were determined to catch him before he succeeded in luring a child into his van. Knowing that I could have been that child, that I might have met a tragic fate before my 10th birthday, enduring unimaginable suffering until my eventual demise, still sends shivers down my spine to this day.